So, back here in the content studio at the Delinea booth. Excited to have Chris Hickman from Keyfactor with me. We just did a great session across the way at Moscone West with a topic that I think is very important based on the feedback of the session we got. A lot of people are thinking about it. It's talking about securing agentic AI and all these agents that are out there with agentic, that tied to agentic AI. And do you treat them as human or machine? And we did a little debate format. I was the human, you were the machine. Good back and forth, and I know ultimately that we were trying to get people to the point. There's a little bit of both. Yes. A little bit of both. So I thought we could recap a little bit of that, maybe dive into some more topics that need to come up here. And again, thank you to Keyfactor for being great, Delinea partner. Thank you for being here as well. But how did you think it went today?
You know what, Frank, I had a lot of fun with that. And it's I was shocked at the number of folks that showed up, to be very honest with you. And when I saw the size of the room initially, I was a little concerned, but we filled those seats.
Yeah, we did.
And very interactive crowd, which was fantastic. We have such a deep partnership with Delinea that our customers are benefiting from, our mutual customers. So I was really excited to be able to share the stage with you and deliver some of our message. And I love the format. We've got tons of feedback from the format, right? People sort of saying, hey, that was great. It was nice to hear a conversation and a debate versus be inundated with PowerPoint slides. So and I think, what my big takeaway from it is there's a lot of uncertainty out there in the market still around agentic AI security, and I think we probably challenged the audience to think about things that maybe they haven't thought about. And if we were successful in that, I think we did a great job at serving the community that showed up to spend their time with us.
I mean, just from watching some of the nods behind the bright lights, it's sort of tough to see, but especially the first couple rows, when you bring up something I would, they're nodding. I think one thing at the end, we talked about key takeaways and timing, and 1 week out, 3 weeks out, 6 months out. I think everyone's in agreement that to figure out how to solve the agentic AI agent security dilemma, if you will, it starts with visibility and discovery.
Absolutely.
And then it's the discussion, how do you handle those? So I know at Delinea with our identity security platform, we talk about discovery is foundational.
Yes.
From your from your perspective as well, Keyfactor, I think ultimately you guys set a project up, you got to discover first, and when you work with clients, that's sort of the first step, and then everything else sort of follows from there, right?
Absolutely, and then our focus at Keyfactor is more on the crypto side of things, the cryptography side of things, but it's the same premise, right? Which is you can't manage what you don't know, right? That you need to go and figure out what is in your environment and then put together a plan to manage it based on the acceptable risk profiles for your organization. Keys and tokens and things like that are all cryptographic assets. When you layer the agentic AI stuff on top of it, that it's a very similar problem space, and they are sort of codependent as well within most ecosystems.
Yeah, I think that layering of the technologies, that's why our partnership's so great, makes a ton of sense. I also think there's a lot of people in the audience today that are probably thinking, wow, we're just starting this journey. So let's say you do figure out the discovery part, then it's like the question we challenge them, your company needs to decide how they want to treat these agentic AI agents. Are they more like machine? Are they more like human? Or do you do a hybrid approach?
Or are they something else?
Are they something else? A third category, yes.
And I mean, again, you really leaned into an important part of it, which is something that I don't have as much expertise in per se, but you do, right? Which is around the audit governance piece, how that sort of falls out from this. We did talk in our sort of follow-up things people should do. And one of the suggestions was, to start looking at this from a holistic standpoint as a program versus just a project after project. And you interjected some great thought into that as well about how that maps into the audit compliance space.
Yeah, because we're already seeing silos and how AI is being used in companies. And someone's running Copilot, okay, that's tied to M365. But then they got Claude going on the side. And next thing you know, the HR department's using AI in one area, finance in a different area. The developers, and no one's not talking as much about DevOps and how they're using AI. Some folks are, but a lot of companies sort of let them stay off their own silo and don't even want to talk about that. And
well, I think sometimes they want to be there.
They want to be. They do. I know, especially with our recent acquisition of Strong DM, that's to help address that.
Absolutely.
And provide them a frictionless way to still do just-in-time access and zero standard privileges for a group that traditionally wants their stuff to run easy, run quickly, have elevated privileges, a path of least resistance. So I do think, unfortunately, what we're seeing is a lot of companies, this is a massive task.
Yes.
And it's moving, the velocity, not just 24/7, 365 with the agents doing this work.
Yeah.
But how do you keep up with the inside your own company?
Well, and you know, it came up in the conversation that we had on stage today, right? That a lot of that pressure is coming from the board down. And you know, move fast.
Right.
You know, make these things happen. There's a lot of perception that agentic AI brings massive value, and I do think that's true.
Right.
But the faster you move, and outside of a good governance framework and the ability to see what's there and what's going on, the more risk you present into it. And I think that is going to be a classic problem for organizations. The board is going to say go fast, and the technology folks are going to be, well, hold on a sec. And you know, usually the board wins in that. There's a new set of skills that organizations need to get. I think the comment I made while we were presenting was, you know, this is truly an intersection of technology and business.
Yes, absolutely.
Which we probably haven't seen quite this way before.
That's quite. And I know at your role at Keyfactor, you're talking to a lot of CISOs, CTOs, CIOs.
Indeed.
When the word AI governance comes up, who's owning it, their companies? How are they approaching it? Is it an IT project? Is it a legal project? What? Because certainly you need to have tools to support your AI governance program. I get that, but how are companies even approaching AI governance to begin with, or does it vary?
You know, I have not seen two approaches that are similar enough to say there's a trend there. To be very honest with you, I've heard everything from, you know, AI has to be approved, but the person who brings it in has to own it and accept responsibility for it, through to, you know, we have centralized approval boards, through to, you know, CFOs won't sign for a purchase and won't allow, you know, for instance, AI subscriptions onto corporate credit cards in order to sort of stop some of the bloat and try to put a financial control. It's all over the board is the bottom line.
Yeah, I think unfortunately it's moving so fast. Everyone knows, but you walk around the show floor, we see AI on all the booths, but AI governance in a lot of places too, on companies pitching their solution to AI governance, and really it's people, process, technology, executive level down. It's not something IT just owns or legal. It needs to involve the whole company. I think a lot of companies are struggling with that, and without strong AI governance, we could do the best thing we want to do security-wise, and you're still going to have gaps.
Yeah, I mean, and the reality is AI is not an IT problem. It's an organizational initiative, cross-functional. You know, it's got to be built on the right foundation to start in order to be able to scale and move forward. And there's a lot of elements to the foundation. There's you know, permissioning. There's just-in-time permissioning. There's identity. There's, you know, cryptography. There's security. All of these things have to be understood and have to be properly built to support the scale. And then on top of that, you've got policy, governance, oversight, so on and so forth. And that's then when you can really start to say, okay, you know what, this is bringing an advantage now, and it's not bringing a level of risk that's intolerable to the organization.
You gotta, again, the discovery and inventory stuff, then you know what your risk is. And then you're layering these different technologies, whether it's from Delinea, Keyfactor, they're all important. And they have to work in harmony, because it's, you know, a chain's only as strong as the weakest link. And if you're working with a tool and it breaks, then everything else below it perhaps is compromised. And I think people are struggling with how it all fits together, and yet companies like Delinea and Keyfactor have had solutions for a while now that can assist with this.
Indeed, and you know, you say everything below it, but it's also everything above it that can break. Right, in the agentic world, it's not just about the agent; it's also what the agent has access to, the types of it. So if you don't get your model right in the first place, you may be over permissioning. You may be granting access inadvertently to things that you don't want included.
Didn't realize you're doing it.
So on and so forth. So, you know, if you're going to use an agent to, say, run some benign HR report as an example, or do something in that respect, but it's got access to financial records, it could skew the result and inadvertently release information that perhaps shouldn't be shown. You know, and so on and so forth. So it's an upward boundary and a downward boundary to establish what needs to be done.
You're almost talking about almost a false positive from a provisioning perspective.
Absolutely.
So, and that ties to a topic I know you're passionate about in general. Test. Security is not a one-time exercise.
No.
I know at Delinea we talk about visibility, security posture, and then continuous control monitoring. I would argue continuous control monitoring, not only looking what's going on, but testing can be a component of that from a cyber resiliency perspective.
Well, and do tabletop type exercises, right? Run the scenarios, what if type of samples, and not just theoretical, so while you're having a sandwich at lunch, but actually sit down with the teams that would be impacted, understand the risk, the scope, and the breadth, and then you can actually look at that from a permission standpoint as an example, or from a provisioning standpoint, and say, okay, you know what, this element introduces an elevated level of risk. Maybe we need to rethink about this agent doing that thing, or narrow its scope, so on and so forth. But once the horses are out of the barn, right? It's really hard to get them back.
And I think they are, or the toothpaste the horses are using is out of the tube. So, but it's a daunting task. But again, there's technologies and solutions to help you. And some of this stuff isn't rocket science in terms of how to approach it.
Indeed.
We've tried to govern other new technologies over the years, whether it was client server and BYOD, GDPR, Y2K, and we figured it out. It's moving so fast.
But to your point, there are answers available today. There are technologies that can help. But it's an exercise that requires a dedicated effort to get there, and really, as we mentioned before, right? It's a program, not a project, and it really needs to be seen in that light.
Huge difference. It's not a project, not owned by IT, not owned by security. It's a program, people, process, technology.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So, all right, I think we'll wrap it up. But again, appreciate your time.
Frank, it's
joining us
been a lot of
in the
fun.
studio. Been a lot of fun here the last 2 hours at RSAC. Again, thank you to Keyfactor for being a great Delinea partner, and looking forward to doing this again.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
Awesome.